Hi, today we're going to have a look at co-transport of glucose and sodium into the epithelial cell from the lumen of the small intestine and then through into the capillary. So, the first thing which happens is that the sodium in the epithelial cell is actively pumped out of the epithelial cell and into the blood. At the same time, potassium is pumped into the epithelial cell from the capillary. Okay, that allows the electrochemical gradient to be maintained, or actually for it not to be present. So when the sodium is pumped out of the epithelial cell and into the capillary, that means that we end up with a low sodium concentration inside of the epithelial cell. So the sodium in the lumen will then diffuse into the epithelial cell down the concentration gradient, and at the same time it will also carry glucose with it, and that is what we refer to as the co-transport of glucose and sodium. Because the glucose levels in this cell, in the epithelial cells, are high, the glucose then diffuses into the capillary. Okay, so I'll just outline the steps for you again. So number one, which happened here, is we have got sodium is actively pumped out of the cell, and at the same time we have potassium being pumped into the cell. Okay, but if we remember that this needs ATP because it's active transport. So in other words, it is going against the concentration gradient. So when the sodium has been actively pumped out of the cell, we end up with a concentration gradient. So that means that for number two, we've got a low concentration of sodium inside of the epithelial cell. So therefore, the sodium will move out of the lumen and into the epithelial cell. Okay, and in fact we number that as number 3 up here. And at the same time as the sodium moving out of the lumen and into the cell, it carries with it glucose. So for number 4, because the glucose levels in the cell are so high, so we've got high glucose in our cell. So in other words, we've got a concentration gradient now between the cell and the blood. So therefore what happens is the glucose, which we've got up here, that then moves out of the cell. Moves out of the cell and into the blood.